Republican Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri, member of the Armed Services, Commerce, and Joint Economic Committees. He was also the former Attorney General of Missouri, joins us now. So what do you think of these commutations? 37 out of 40 death row inmates, including people who were responsible for taking the lives of young children. Biden says this is to ensure a fair and effective justice system. For the family members of the victims, how is that in any way doing that?
It isn't, and it's 2 days before Christmas. I can only imagine the grief and the shock that these families are experiencing as they get ready for the holidays, remembering the loved ones that were lost and now having to deal with this sort of insult to injury. And I think Joe Biden, in his effort to Trump-proof, we saw some of that, for the next administration, whether it's hiding DEI workers or things at the border. This is just beyond the pale. And I think he's cementing his status as one of the worst presidents in American history, certainly this side of Woodrow Wilson. And I think, John, in that intro, you told, it's important, as a former prosecutor myself, I think it's important to talk about the victims here. Lexis Roberts went on a camping trip with her mother and Thomas Sanders. Thomas Sanders, on the way back, took her mother out and executed her in cold blood in front of Lexis, then slit Lexis Roberts' throat and let her die in the woods. This is someone that Joe Biden, on the eve of Christmas, decided to commute his sentence. This is nuts. This is totally nuts. And so the outrage is real. It's justified. And again, Joe Biden, on his way out, is again cementing his status as one of our worst presidents.
Well, I mean, it really makes you wonder what's going through his mind when you commute the sentence of a person like that. Wanted to move on to this with you because I know this is a big issue for you. President-elect Trump not backing off his promises to get tough on immigration just as soon as he gets into office. Listen to what he said over the weekend.
On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign a historic slate of executive orders to close our border to illegal aliens and stop the invasion of our country. And on that same day, we will begin the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. We're going to get them out. We're going to get them out fast. We have no choice.
But President Biden could be fighting back in his final days in office. A New York Times report says he is considering a plan to extend protection for hundreds of thousands of immigrants whose legal status will expire under Trump. Under the Biden administration, there have been historic numbers of border encounters. Since February of 2021, Customs and Border Protection has seen more than 10.7 million migrants at the border. So this would be an extension of temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of people who entered this country illegally. I talked to Tom Homan this morning. He says that those aren't the people that they're going to be targeting, at least not in the initial wave, unless they are criminals. So what effect would this really have?
It wouldn't have any effect. And by the way, if it's executive order, President Trump can undo that. If it's some sort of administrative rule, Congress can come in under the Congressional Review Act and reverse that. I haven't seen that specifically, but this is Joe Biden on the way out doing what he did on the way in, which was reversing all the success we had under President Trump. There were 94 executive orders that Joe Biden did in the first 100 days to undo that success. President Trump, I would expect, as he alluded to in that clip, to come in and secure the border, bring back Remain in Mexico. You're going to see deportations of these illegal immigrants that are terrorizing our communities, the flood of fentanyl that's coming in and killing our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins. And so President Trump ran on this. This was part of his mandate. It's part of the reason why he swept all the battleground states and won the popular vote. The American people don't want to see an open border. These aren't just white papers anymore, John. These people got in charge and they wreaked havoc on our country. And President Trump's coming in and Holman's coming in, and they're going to do what they said they were going to do, which is deport these criminals who are taking over apartment complexes, lighting people on fire on New York subways. I mean, we saw that news yesterday. I mean, this stuff's nuts, and I think the American people are going to welcome this.
Well, they're going to hit the ground running. There's no question about that. You know, the Wall Street Journal editorial board is calling it the sanctuary state migrant boom. It asks, quote, are Democrats in self-declared sanctuary states trying to attract illegal migrants to compensate for growing domestic flight to other states? It's a fair question, as the Census Bureau's latest report shows that New York, California, and Illinois have reversed a years-long trend of declining population, but only thanks to foreign migration. A separate opinion piece points to the impending constitutional showdown between the incoming Trump administration and sanctuary cities pushing back on immigration policies. It argues that those local officials will lose in court. Back to Tom Homan, he has said that any city or state official who stands in his way of removing these particularly criminal illegal aliens will be prosecuted. Can he do that?
Yeah, they have no legal foot to stand on here, these sanctuary mayors, to prevent federal jurisdiction to deport folks. And forever, John, you know, Republican or Democrat presidents, the law of the United States of America was if you came here illegally, you were detained. Unless there was a reason like your asylum claim was adjudicated, you got to stay. Otherwise, you were deported. That wasn't until 4 years ago when they flipped this thing, you know, on its head. And to your earlier point, the worst kept secret here is, yeah, the Democrats were relying on illegal immigrants to bolster their census for 2030 because you don't need to be a citizen to be counted in the census. And so that's been their plan all along. And then their next part of that plan was if they won, heaven forbid, they'd have mass amnesty for the illegal immigrants. And so thankfully President Trump won, and we're going to be deporting these criminals again that have terrorized our community. So these sanctuary city mayors and in these states, I think there's a lot of puffery right now to sound tough to their political base. But I'd advise them, they might want to take a look at the election results. That's not what people, even in states like California or New York, actually voted for as they moved to the right.
You know, in some municipalities, you can even vote in local elections if you're not a citizen. So that's going to affect the makeup of some city councils and things as well. Senator, thank you very much for being with us. Really appreciate it. All of our best to you in the holiday season. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, John.
All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.